Life lessons get learned in some of the strangest places, don't they? Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And we're going to continue talking about some life lessons that I learned from basketball that you don't have to be a basketball type to understand, but these relate to life, and I want to make some points with you here on these. These are pretty simple. First one, as a coach, the first thing that you look for your basketball team is who is going to be your point guard, your leader on the floor, your coach on the floor. It's absolutely critical that you have one guy. I used to call him the quarterback, so you get the idea, who's going to be the quarterback, who's going to be the point. This is the person that gets everybody in position to perform at their best. Guess what? Same thing is true on the business side of the balance sheet. You're always looking to develop leaders. Why? Because one of the major goals of businesses is to expand, is to do more, is to bring in more money, is to do more things for your customers. If you're going to do more, you have to have more leaders. Quick example of that, I remember when I was in high school as a senior, I was the point guard, I was the captain of the team, and I was the point guard, and we were about to play our absolutely big game of the year against the #1 team in our league, a team named Brockton, and we were going to travel to play them that day. I woke up in the morning and I had 100-degree temperature. And my mom said, guess what? You're not going to school today. We'll call the coach and let him know that you're not coming in. Well, it wasn't something I was really looking forward to, but you have to give him some time. So in my place, they put in someone that was, shall we say, significantly less experienced. And when they went to play Brockton, well, the results could be foreseen. We kind of got our butts handed to us. I listened to the game on the radio. All right, so that was kind of a negative that way, but we played each team 2 times. So the next time we played them at the end of the season, we were playing them at our gym, which is an advantage, and I'm sure they were a little bit complacent having blown our doors off the previous time we got together. So there was some advantage there, but also I was back in the lineup, and you know what? We beat the #1 team in the league that night. And one of the reasons why we beat that team is because we put people in the right position and got them to perform at their highest level. So having a point guard in basketball and having a point guard in business is critical, and you must always be developing backups. Always develop backups. We played our game at the beginning of the season. My backup didn't have so much experience. Perhaps if we'd have played later on, he would have been able to play better. But you follow what I'm saying. You've always got, as a leader, you always must be developing leaders. That's job 1. Okay, next point. Small nuances fitting in with the big picture. Well, let's get to the basketball part of it first. One of the things, one year I had a team where we didn't have very good basketball players, but we had some pretty darn good athletes. And we wanted to win games, obviously. So we weren't going to win games by playing people straight up, because these guys weren't basketball players. They were outstanding football players, outstanding baseball players, and they were playing basketball. That's what they played, but that wasn't their main focus as athletes. But they were athletes. So what did I do? I took their strengths, and their strengths was being athletic, and we decided that we were going to press the other team. We were going to cover them over the entire length of the court, with the idea being that the other team would panic, give us the ball, we would have more chances at the basket, and the more chances you have, the more times you can score. It's kind of as simple as that. But in order to do that, we had to prepare the press. Now, the press was a team thing, and the first thing you have to do in this particular press is control the direction that the dribbler is going. And so we would start off every practice with a one-on-one drill. Practice turning the dribbler, getting the angle, using the sideline, all of those things. Then we'd go 2-on-2, where we'd have two people, one guy controlling the dribble and the other guy coming over to set the trap at exactly the right time. Then we would go 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, until we had each individual piece of the puzzle inserted, and we would do it one at a time every single practice. And believe me, when you're focusing on the one thing, you focus on one thing, you don't always see how it fits in with the bigger picture. So it's essential that you put the pieces together and everybody see, oh, now I get it. So the guys that were not focusing on the dribbling but were back covering the other people, their job was to cover this passing lane and that passing lane, because when the two guys came to trap, what would happen is the guy with the ball would take it and throw it. He'd have to throw sort of a high arcing pass instead of a very quick, bullet pass. And when you throw the high arcing pass, that's the pass that gets intercepted. So our guys had to have an eye here, and they had to be ready to pounce as soon as they saw the trap, and that was like, okay, here it comes, here it comes. Same thing is true in business, in your life. You have to be ready to pounce when the opportunity presents itself. Paying attention to detail. Well, in basketball, one of the obvious details that you want to pay attention to is foul shooting. How many games have you seen that have come down to the end where either the team's ability to shoot foul shots or their inability to shoot foul shots determine the outcome of the game? Well, when we were practicing in college, I college coached, and I thought this was brilliant, and I used it when I was coaching, was, at the end of every practice, you always say, all right, everybody shoot 20 free throws, or everybody shoot 25 free throws, okay? And that's what you did at the end of a practice. Okay, well, our coach in college, what he did was said, okay, here's what you're going to do. In a game, the most important foul shots are when you're shooting 1-and-1. All right, you make the first one, then you get a second one. If you don't make the first one, you don't get a second one. So you want to make both. And when you're in the game, you don't go to the foul line, you're all calm, you're all, you're not out of breath. You're huffing and puffing when you go into the foul line. So he would make us run 2 sprints and then go to the foul line to shoot a 1-and-1. So when you got to the foul line, you were, okay, just like you would be in the game. And that prepared you better for actual game conditions. Does that make sense? So paying attention to detail in everything you do is critical, because you want to be able to simulate what's going to happen during the game. An example, story I want to tell you from the business side of the balance sheet. When I was in the insurance business, one of the things we used to do was knock on doors. And if you didn't get into somebody's house, you didn't have the opportunity to make a sale. You didn't have an opportunity to help the client. You didn't get the opportunity to get them happily involved. That's what we called it when you made a sale. They were happily involved. All right, so the first thing we would do, because we would break it down into individual components, pay attention to detail. First thing we talked about was, how do you knock on a door? That's the way that you knock on a door. And then we would role play and have somebody else, at our door say, yeah, what do you want? How can I help you? Just the way somebody would be at a real door. And we would make it more difficult for them when we were role playing in the office than they would ever get out in the field. Not only that, but the guys that were role playing would very often use the things that were causing them difficulty out in the field, and I would be there watching it and show them how to overcome that particular obstacle. So you've got to pay attention to each detail, the detail of, before you get into the home to make a presentation, before you get to the situation where you're closing somebody, you're saying, all right, go get your checkbook, let's get started. Before you get to that point, you have to get into the house and you have to qualify the client. So we worked on that every single day in the office, and our people out in the field were ready to rock and roll, because they knew there wasn't anything that a client could say to them that hadn't already been said to them. Team play. The whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. All right, in basketball, you got some guys that are very good dribblers, you got some guys that are good rebounders, that block shots, that type of thing. You've got to have a combination of both. You can't have all little guys, although one team tried it last year. They didn't do as well as they had hoped. You can't have all little guys on the floor. You've got to have a big guy. Why? Because some people are good shooters, some people are good rebounders, and you want to have the ball in the hands of your best shooter when you're at the end of a quarter. You don't want to have the ball in the hands of a bricklayer, someone that's not a good shooter, at the end of a quarter, because you're taking one shot. So, and the same thing is true in whatever you do in basketball. I mean, you want to have your big guys underneath the basket. Why? Because they're more likely to get the rebound. That's why. And the other thing is, as an example, you want to put people in the right spots. You don't want to have a little guy getting the ball near the basket and then turn around and he's got to look up at all the trees trying to block a shot. 12 people are going to put it into the stands. So you want to be smart, and each individual person has different skills, and you want to take advantage of those skills and meld them together. And when you do that, you're going to find that the sum of the whole is bigger than the individual parts. That's what makes a great team. The same thing is true in business. As an example, one of the things that I was pretty good at was sales. But there was also a compliance department. The compliance department says, you can say this, you can say that, you can't say this, you can't say that. When you're filling out the application, it has to be done this way. So you have the two kind of different departments, one that's trying to get business, the other that's trying to protect business and keep everything straight. So, it's just the team play of working together. And the other thing is, when you would have somebody, one guy was a real good salesperson and somebody else was just starting, you'd have them go out together, team play, so that they can learn from each other. Energy and attitude. You've got to bring energy to the game, Eli, and you've got to bring attitude to the game. One of the things that I remember that always brought me energy to the game. Now, first of all, we would be, before the game started, we'd be in the locker room passing the ball back and forth and getting ourselves psyched up and so on and so forth. But there's nothing like where you're at the door of the locker room and it's time for you to come out and start your layup line, and you run out and you go, let's go! And then the crowd cheers and the crowd screams, and that just gives you extra adrenaline, energy, and attitude. You have to do that. Unfortunately, there aren't a whole lot of crowds when you walk into your office building. You have to bring that with you. How do you bring that with you? Very simply, you envision what it is you want to accomplish that day. You see yourself accomplishing it. You're grateful that you've accomplished it. And then you're walking in with a positive attitude, what you're going to do, and you're ready to go crazy. All right? That's the attitude you have to have. When I would walk into my office, all the time I would do things to get myself pumped up to see the people in my office, because I was responsible to help motivate them. Does that make some sense? So I would read this, or I would listen to that tape or whatever on the way into the office, get my head straight, and have a positive attitude and have the energy that I needed, because those things, energy and attitude, are contagious. And that's good energy and attitude, and unfortunately, that's bad energy and attitude. So make sure that you're on the positive side, good energy and good attitude. Preparation. When I was coaching, we played in a basketball game. One of the things, when I was one of the assistant coaches, they would send me to watch one of the other schools and write a scouting report. What would I put in the scouting report? Well, this guy's a really good shooter. He likes to shoot from this particular spot. Make sure that you deny him the ball at that area. Or this guy is much stronger with his right hand than with his left hand. Overplay his right. Make sure that he goes left. Make people do what they don't want to do. Now that's basketball coaching, all right? On the other hand, in life, you want to take a look at situations that are likely to arise. As an example, this pandemic is one. One of the things they're telling you is, hey, wear a mask, keep 6 feet away, social distance, that type of thing. That's the scouting report. Very simple. That's a scouting report for the pandemic. All right, wash your hands. That's a scouting report. In business, you have different things. Well, the market's likely to react this way, or people are no longer thinking that way. Now their focus is on this. All right. So when you're doing something, when you're planning something, give it some preparation. Be ready to play. They would tell us before the game. All right, this is your guy. This is what your guy does. All right, your guy is an especially good rebounder. You need to make sure that you block him out on each and every play, because he's going to hurt us if you don't block. That's the point. And as a leader, one of the things is you have to tell your people, hey, let's keep our focus. You're going to hear some noise on the outside world. You have to block that out. All right, so just getting your people ready, preparation, scouting, and being ready to play is essential, because when your opportunity comes, and you never know when that's going to be, you have to be ready to get into the game and make hay. Proper balance. Okay, let's talk about proper balance. Proper balance. First thing is, on a basketball level, one of the things you have to remember is when you're receiving the ball, you want to receive it in the triple threat position, and that's with your knees bent. All right, because any move that you make always starts with your knees bent. So if you catch it and you're standing upright, your next move is going to be here. Why not eliminate that move? There's only 3 things you can do with a basketball. You can dribble it, you can pass it, you can shoot it. All 3 of them start by receiving the ball with your knees bent. Let's talk about balance on the personal side of the balance sheet. When I was coaching for our soft team, of course I'm looking to win, but I'm also looking to develop the players as individuals, as people. Now, I had this one guy that was a very good player as a freshman. He was a good shooter, okay? He was my best shooter, in fact. And he would get kind of edgy a lot of times in practice, and sometimes he would, get chippy, and a fight would start. And as soon as the fight started, I said, Rick, go take a shower, have a nice day. All right? That's not what we're here for. We're not here for that. We're here as a team. And I would send him off. Okay? So there's going to be sort of a balance in everything that you do. Yeah, I wanted to win, but what's more important is this individual's character, or the fact that we're going to win one basketball game. You follow what I'm saying? All right? And you can do both. All right? Because it also taught him that he has to control his temper, that it's not going to be tolerated. If he's going to act that way, see you later, next. All right? We can't have that. It's not something that we have. All right? The same thing is true in life. 3 sides of the balance sheet, as we've spoken about many times. The personal side, the business side, the spiritual side. When you're doing, when you're on the personal side, when you're on your honeymoon, as an example, that's not the time that you want to be focusing on your business. When you're in a pew at church, that's not the time that you want to be focusing on your business. You want to separate those things, and when you give them individual focus, give them 100% individual focus. Have proper balance. Communication. Okay, when you're playing basketball, you've got to act as a team. Why? Because you're there, you're covering, let's say you're playing defense and you're covering an individual, and somebody else from the other team comes up and tries to set up a block, a screen we call it, and you have to know, because if you're going full bore and that guy's there and you don't see him, that can be a kind of a painful collision. So there's got to be a lot of talk. You have to say, screen right, screen right, screen right. All right? Or switch, I'm going to take him there. Or communicating, because if you're going to act as a team, you have to act in concert. Does that make sense? Also, as an example, when we would press, all right, we'd have the guys in the front that were trying to contain the dribbler. We'd have a guy or two in the middle, and we'd have one guy in the back, all right, protecting the basket. And the guy in the back can see the whole floor. So he has to say, there's a man on your right, there's a man on your right, all right, or coming left, coming left. Those types of things, that type of communication is essential if you want your basketball team to be productive. Guess what? In the wonderful world of business, your communication, sometimes directives come from the top down. When they do, you cannot assume that that individual is going to understand the directions you give. I've seen in so many instances unnecessary failures because the person receiving the directions was not on exactly the same page as the person giving the directions. So how do you overcome that? Very simple. You give the directions and you say, okay, let's be clear. Tell me what you're going to do. Tell me how you're going to do it. And then when they do that, then you know that they're on the same page that you're on. And if they don't give it to you the right way, then you know you didn't do a good job communicating, and you must communicate again. Have them regurgitate back to you the direction so that you know what you want to get accomplished will be accomplished. Does that make some sense? Okay, giving you 9 more because we never end a meeting on a philosophical note. Remember, you can learn a lot from basketball is like life. Let's get out there and take the charge. I'm Eli's dad.